Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and to everyone all around the world who follows Plain Talk, the number one show in high-level, intellectual, stimulating, thought-provoking talk. We are joined this evening by the head of the Political Science Department of the University of the West Indies, Dr. Bishnu Raghunath. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening. Good
How
to
are
be on
you?
your show. I'm fine,
Great.
thank you.
Very good having you here. Doctor, you head the Political Science Department at the University of the West Indies. Could you explain to us what a political science department does in the political wasteland of the corrupt politics and racist tribal voting of Trinidad and Tobago?
Very good question. What we do is that we train people to become not to be one of those people. And I say this from the point of view of saying that when last have you ever heard somebody with a political science degree entering into politics? People with political science degrees don't go into politics. They know better. What you have is the engineers and the volcanologists and the lawyers and everybody else going into politics. So what we tell people and what we teach people and what it's all about is really about how to manage affairs as well as how to try and do the best that you can. I have a course in ethics that I teach on the campus. Believe it or not, when I do my course in ethics, my students are always asking me, why can't you train the politicians? Why can't you? I said, but will they come to my class? No, they wouldn't. And that's the problem.
Dr. Raghunath, we in the Progressive Empowerment Party were invited to sign a document at an organization that said it protected the ethics and it promoted ethical behavior in politics. And we read the document sitting at the Archbishop House and found um, three items that the actual organization varied itself and it compromised itself on, and we couldn't even sign that document. Is Trinidad a hopeless and lost cause for real sensible politics? Are we just going to end up into a street fight at some point?
All right. So let me put that into all of that you just said into context. And yes, I am also the chair of that committee that has that role, and that is the Code of Ethical Political Conduct. So, and the Council for Responsible Political Behavior. I am the chair of that council. So I expected that you would want that explained, and I will explain that to you as well as to your viewers. Clearly, one, you have to understand that code of ethical political conduct, where it started. And it started way back in 2014, when literally we were trying to raise the conduct of the elections process. Conduct of the elections process will tell me that I could only look at an election period. For instance, and people have complained to me about it already, why haven't we said anything about all the nonsense that went on before we entered into COVID? Why have we not? Why are we still quiet? Simply, a code was drafted. A code was drafted and was signed by the majority of political parties in 2015. We've extended tho- that to all the other parties who came out after 2015, and several parties who came in after 2015 came in and signed. Your party, however, and you, I believe you attended and said that you were not signing because there were you considered there certain breaches in the code by some of the founding organizations. And I take that as a given. I am not a member of the founding organization. I was invited to take a code, monitor adherence to a code. And that is what we do. How we do it and when we do it in an election period. According to that same code that was signed by the parties in 2015, yeah, I'll give. By that same code which was signed by the parties in 2015, we are told we could only monitor 3 months before an election. 3 months before an election is June. So we start in June. Yes, Mr. Alexander.
So you're saying to me that politicians engage in the most egregious, unethical behavior for 5 years and 3 months? Because the People's Partnership United Nationals Congress government set a precedent now that you have an extra 6 months after your 5 years up to have the election. So you're saying that for 5 years and 3 months or 5 years you can be as unethical as you want, and the Council for Responsible Behavior in Politics can do or say nothing?
Yes, the council could say nothing because the council, and again, you have to understand the council and how it functions. The council functions as a voluntary organization. Civil society organization have invited us to try to keep political parties in some degree political perspective. But the problem is that although we've been invited to monitor adherence to a code, guess what? Nobody gives us nobody, not even the founding organizations. For all intents and purposes, this is a voluntary group. We came together. We were asked whether we would volunteer our time 3 months before an election to monitor what is happening and to bring parties up to date as to when we think that they are stepping out of bounds. When we were monitoring the 2015 elections, Rudal Munilal went on a platform and made some statements. And for all intents and purposes, we thought those statements were in breach of the code that his party had signed. We call on the UNC and we call on Rudal Munilal. And Rudal Munilal accepted that what he said on the platform was not acceptable. And to that extent, he went back on a platform the next night and says, well, look, I have been called to account. And I am now saying that I am going to try and be careful of what I'm saying. Now, that's one example where we got some change. I'm not saying that we have succeeded. But remember, prior to 2015, it was literally a free fall. You could go on any platform and say anything you want. And you have your supporters cheering you on. And nobody calls you to account. Nobody says anything. And it is in that context that the code was developed. Parties have adhered to and applied to the code. Of course, there are some people who are not signing. We can't force anybody to sign. We can't tell them.
But Dr. Raghunath, I have to interrupt you a little bit to say that, like every other system in Trinidad and Tobago, you've just admitted that for many reasons it is dysfunctional and for some reasons it is non-functional. So for me, and so for me to sign, now with an abundance of respect, for me to sign and not voice a complaint, what would motivate you as chair and the rest of the membership to actually get the thing functional?
All right. And this is the challenge. This is the challenge. I have been invited to apply a code of ethics. I didn't write this code. Bear this in mind. I didn't write it. It was drafted by civil society. Civil society apparently took it to the political parties before they came to us. The political parties agreed to it in 2014. The political parties agreed to it in 2014. In 2014, the MSJ, the PNM, the UNC, the COP, and the ILP all agreed.
So they use your good name. They use your good name to oversee.
We came after.
So they're using your good name to oversee an agreement that they entered into without you having sight of that at the creation phase.
At that time, yes. Yes.
And how you feel about
And
that?
they, huh? No, well, you see,
But
the
as
thing about it, you look at the bigger picture. You look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture tells us at that point in time there was nothing in place. There was nothing in place. When, for instance, in 2015, we went to the then EBC and we asked the then chairman of the EBC, Mr. Masson, Mr. Masson, what do you think about this? And you know what was his response? His response was simply, this is something that